Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my YouTube channel. I'm Tim Green. I write in the pen name Tim RG. And again, this is my writing channel. And you're listening to the Skyler Grant Podcast. This is my buddy Adam Daley of the ZOP Gaming channel.
Hello, everyone.
He is reading a very, very first draft of the only novel I've ever pants, The Chronicles of Skyler Grant. We just shortened it to Skyler Grant because, well, I forgot to put a cover page on it when I gave it to him.
Yeah. You did.
So he is reading a chapter from this book in a few minutes, and then afterwards we will be discussing the chapter, the story as a whole, since we're at in chapter 22, and just trying to remember what I was thinking when I wrote this. Adam's just talking about anything he wants to shine a bright spotlight on. So, but yeah, like I said, we're on chapter 22. It's interesting. We're currently in a flashback sequence. So, if you haven't listened to the other 21 episodes, you can go back and listen to those now. Or, here's an idea. Listen to this one, get all confused, and then go back and listen to the other ones and see if you're less confused or more confused like we are.
The best part about the playlist, it's going to take you from, chapter 1 all the way through.
Yep. So, you can do that, but now that you got caught up in what this all is going on here, so Adam, before you start reading the chapter,
yes,
if you go on to like this podcast, why don't you go and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as a prayer to the holy algorithm. And subscribe because I do have writing content on this channel. With that said, Adam, begin.
Skyler Grant. Written by Tim Green. Narrated by Adam Daley. Chapter 22. 4 months ago. The three of you take a seat. Mr. Zolkowski will deal with you in a few minutes, said Mrs. O'Harris with authority, the school secretary. Everyone knows she is sleeping with Mr. Zolkowski, without his wife knowing, because of this, she thinks she has more power than she actually does. Sherry and Steve sat right next to the door. Jenna sat with a few spots open between her and Steve. Jenna already knew what was going to happen. They were going to blame her for what happened and get off scot-clean, while she will probably end up with a week of detention. Several minutes went by, and Mr. Zolkowski opened his door, walked out. He was a tall, older man with brown hair that was combed over so you could not see that he was going bald, but everyone knew he was. He wore a light blue button shirt with a matching tie and with a random pattern on it. He walked over to Mrs. O'Harris, whispered something in her ear. She giggled before pointing to them. Mr. Zolkowski glanced over at them before looking back at Mrs. O'Harris before turning around and heading back into his office. The three of you can go in, said Mrs. O'Harris with a glare. Jenna stood up and quickly passed by Steve and Sherry, who were clearly not happy they were all going to be in the room at the same time. She continued into the big office. Mr. Zolkowski was a third chair in next to the other two, so they could all sit down. Jenna hurried over and sat in the chair furthest from the other two. Steve and Sherry eventually walked in and sat down in the other two chairs, with Steve in them middle. Mr. Zolkowski had already taken his scat behind his huge maple wood desk that was stained with a dark brown. How wants to tell me what's happened in the gym? Asked Mr. Zolkowski, looking at Jenna, without the others interrupting. I will, said Sherry, sitting up, trying to make herself more perfect. We were playing hockey, and this bitch over here hit me with the stick multiple times, always when Mr. Chris was not looking. Sherry, please do not refer to Jenna as bitch. Whatever. I finally get her back, and she tries to attack me. If it wasn't for Steve here, she would have jumped on me. Because he got in her way, she kicked him in the balls. "That is a lie?" shouted Jenna, standing up.
"No, it isn't," said Steve. "I could hardly breathe after you kicked me."
"Jenna, I said not to interrupt." "But she is lying?" "You will get your chance," said Zolkowski, staring at Jenna before turning to Sherry. "Please continue." I am done." "Steve?"
"It happened exactly as Sherry said."
Jenna shook her head, knowing they were trying to use their status to influence Mr. Zolkowski. They knew that he favored all the popular kids and anyone who played on a varsity sport team. It was usually a popular kid in the office, someone who wasn't. Make it easy for Mr. Zolkowski punish the non-popular and let the popular one off easy. In this case, it will come down to who he thinks is more popular. "All right, Jenna," said Mr. Zolkowski, turning his chair to face her. "Now you can talk." "What really happened is that I checked Sherry throughout hockey game. She didn't like it, and at the end, she elbowed me, and I reacted by hooking her leg. From there, Steve got involved and hooked my arms so I couldn't defend myself. So I ran my foot down his shin, then kicked him in the balls. That was only after she slapped me." Mr. Zolkowski sat in his chair looking at Jenna, before turning to see Sherry and Steve, who both scarlet red. Jenna believed she saw steam coming out of Sherry's ears. A minute or two passed, and Mr. Zolkowski had yet to say anything. Jenna knew he was trying to figure out who was more popular so he could nail the other. Another minute passed, and Jenna just stared at Sherry and Steve, who looked concerned that they might actually get in trouble. "Mr. Zolkowski!" shouted Sherry, standing up far more red than before. Jenna thought she was about to pop. "That is 100% not true." "Sit down, Sherry." Sherry returned to her seat and glared at Jenna, and she knew what she was thinking. If she got in any trouble, she would get even in the worst possible way she could. Steve was also glaring at her as Mr. Zolkowski sat thinking through what he was going to do. Finally, a few minutes passed before he stood up. "All three of you have detention after school for the rest of the week." "What?" shouted Sherry. "I didn't do anything." "Mr. Zolkowski," said Steve, getting red more, but trying to hold back his anger. "Detention is during lunch." "Oh, I know you three will be there as well. But we'll also have it after school, and it will be spent cleaning the gym." "Mr. Zolkowski?" said Jenna, not happy about this. Not as mad as she would have been if she just got in trouble. "I have cheerleading after school?" "Not this week, you don't. You and Sherry are suspended from the squad for this week." "What?" shouted Jenna and Sherry. "You heard me. You three will be reporting to Mr. Chris after school and detention at lunch. Also, if you three have any confrontation in the next month, I will kick you off from all sports teams and out of school for 2 weeks, and you will not be allowed to make up any work you miss. Now, the three of you get out of my office, go change back into your clothes, and head to your next class." All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was an interesting chapter.
Yes, it was. So let's just get this first one out of the way. 4 months ago,
Yeah, we're moving backwards in time to talk about things that just happened.
I know. Obviously, the idea behind this was clearly saying, okay, we're still 4 months ago.
Yes.
But it should have been
A date.
Yeah.
And a time.
Almost all these time skips should have had dates.
Yes.
And I know we're going to have a few that are coming up in the next few chapters that absolutely have a date. And it's the only reason why I was able to fully reconstruct a timeline very quickly of this book because of those 2 days. Because I didn't have to actually go and pick a date. I already had some dates to work with.
Oh, good.
So, but yeah, this makes it sound like we're going back before the events that's happened. So apparently,
Yep.
time is going backwards.
Yes.
But that's the linear.
But now we're 8 months before she was 5 years old.
Yes.
To her sometime in school, sometime in high school.
No, this whole thing was, I get why I put that there, but my mind, my thinking was right in a sense, but how I put it down was wrong.
Totally wrong.
Completely wrong at that time. And it should have been like, last chapter, it should have been 4 months, no, it should have been 13 years later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I know.
Not 13 years.
Yeah, like 11 years later.
11 years later. Because, yeah, she's 16. 11 years later, instead of, 4 months ago. Huh?
The line that just completely made me stop was the Mr. Zulkowski had already taken his seat. It's supposed to be seat. I saw scat behind his huge maple wood desk that was stained with a dark brown. Sir, do you understand what scat is? That is poop.
No, I know.
He had already taken a shit behind his desk, which was stained brown. Wait. What kind of brown is his desk stained with? Where did you get that color? Why is there so much yellow in there?
Yeah.
Is that a green spot?
Again, awesome. Zulkowski. That's how you say it. Zulkowski.
Zakowski.
He's Zakowski. It's not Mike Wazowski.
I don't.
We're not in
care.
Monster Inc.
I am pronouncing it however I want to.
He's not. This is not Monsters Inc. Mike Wazowski.
I love the fact that Mrs. O'Harris is just like the worst person. Hey, you can go in there now. And then the principal's like, yeah, I'm a creep.
I find it funny that this is
also the fact that it took Sherry minutes
before she
to finally was like, she's lying, and it's like, really?
I think the idea behind that moment was the fact that she was so convinced that she's more popular. Like,
yeah,
that
just being with Steve.
Her and Steve are more popular than Jenna. That it's gonna be an easy. Well, no, Jenna, you're in the wrong.
Yeah, and
then he wasn't. That's what sent her over the edge. And she had to get one last line in there, but she didn't think of what to say.
No.
She exploded. Though, if you go back through the last chapter, and what we know of Steve, Jenna, and Sherry, who's more popular?
Jenna.
No.
Steve.
I would have been Steve.
Yeah, Steve is the top.
And then Sherry would have been more popular. But even then, you even hints that Sherry's more popular than Steve because, remember, she's only with him because Steve wanted Jenna.
Yeah.
So I feel more evidence that those two are actually more popular.
They're a power couple.
And yet, in this scene, a principal who prefers the popular kids couldn't figure out the difference.
It's because she cracked. It's also because Steve is kind of an idiot. And I'm willing to bet the principal is like, I hate the fact that this idiot is the popular kid right now. Fuck, he's an idiot. Like and also the fact that Jenna was obviously honest. Out of everything, Jenna's the one going, yeah, no, I did this, she did that, and then Steve did this.
I think more of the idea,
and then I took care of that.
I think the more of the idea you could play into this or if I was to rewrite this scene now, it would be more of the idea that he's not just picking in this situation. He can't just pick between two. He's picking from the less popular. He's debating on who is going to remain popular.
Yeah.
Because he knows the whole situation with Steve and Jenna. But if Jenna keeps her popularity and Steve and Sherry go down, or something goes down before on that, like, it seems like more he's very aware of the
political situation of the school,
of the kids' popularity, way more than a lot, even some of the popular kids are.
Oh yeah.
So he knows who he gets when it's a popular kid, any popular kid versus someone who's not.
He actually has an entire whiteboard.
Yeah.
That he keeps moving things around. It's one of those magnetic ones, so you can keep moving names up and down. There's a lot of movement near the bottom constantly.
Yeah.
But
that's the idea. Like, or at least in his mind,
he's like, maybe I can change my top 5 finally.
Or something like that. So it's the point, like,
if Steve becomes less popular, the science teacher, Mr. Wen, will owe me $20. All right, let's make it happen.
So it's one of those.
All of you have detention.
It's one of those things where it's just like, all the evidence I've given you so far says he should easily side with there.
Oh, yeah.
But then out of nowhere, he just like, you'll all get detention.
He's like, you know what?
But
screw all of you.
I do love how Steve is like, but Mr. Zukolski.
That's during lunchtime.
Detention is during lunchtime. He's the one that really points that out.
Whoa, bro.
Not the two.
That's my lunchtime. That's when I chow, bro.
Also, the other thing I want to point out is I love how in this thing, after a physical altercation, all 3 are sent into a room with one bolding, probably a pudgy guy who would not be able to stop them.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's how schools really operate.
I know.
Again, young adult novel, this is how you'd write it, though.
Yeah, they would not.
For conflict reasons, you put them in there together. Instead of making it realistic.
Yeah, anybody today would have been like, and you sit out in the hallway. They're talking with the principal now. Now you go in there and you talk with them.
And then you talk to them. Now, for a story...
Usually be like, the principal, the teacher is one of the first ones to be like, this is what happened. This is what I saw. Now you can start talking to them about what they did.
Or they'll go and talk to them later.
Yes.
Depending on their schedule or something like that. The more realistic way to write it is each one gets their own thing in there.
Right.
Now, for a story conflict, you could say, okay, Steve and Sherry both go in at the same time because it's the same side.
Oh, yeah.
It gives it so you can build that, like, them versus her.
It would be really cool to, when rewriting it, don't even put what Sherry and like, they go in and you talk about Jenna for a little while. And then she goes in and she tells them, exactly what happened.
Yep.
Like, she's overly honest about it. She's like, no, I did that. And I did that. But this is why I did that. And have him just be like, she didn't even mention some of that. Yeah. And Steve is really worried about, just have him basically come out and just be like, yeah, she said that you talked about her mom, that you were screaming, I'll kill you. It was she's like,
also,
no.
Also,
I didn't even get that chance.
There's no mention of talking to Mr. Chris. So one of the things that it's like, okay, I've heard your side. Go to in-house suspension. I'm going to talk to Mr. Chris and then I'll have my ruling.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or something like that, and then you can...
Or even better, he could just be like, I already have the punishment. He's like, I'm thankful that you're honest, but you are going to be punished for it because you did these things, and this is the punishment. And they had it as well. And you're like, is that why they... No, they should be able to walk out with the smuggest smiles on their faces. Like, ha ha.
Oh, no.
And everyone like, oh yeah, no, they lied to me.
What you could have done is, okay, go back out, wait out there. And then Mr. Chris would eventually come in.
Yeah.
And then quick, blah, 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 and then leave. And then he brings them all 3 in, or Mr. Chris stays in there.
Yeah.
All 3 come in, and he says...
And all of you have detention.
So, something like that. But yeah.
Who the heck has detention during lunch?
That's how my school did it. It was lunch detention.
All my school, it was all after school.
No, we had lunch detention. Basically, what happened was if you got lunch detention, you had to go to a classroom. You had time to go get your food. You had to come in. You sat there and you were silent. No talking, nothing. And different teachers would.
That doesn't sound that bad to me.
Um,
I'd just be reading a book.
I don't think you were allowed to do that. Like you had to be quiet. Like it's like you're sitting here doing nothing.
I
See, that's the thing. Like I was basing.
I have ADD. Do you know how hard it is to not do
I know.
to not do anything? To actively not do anything.
See, I always thought that was weird because I was used to like high school dramas and everything, and detention was after school. You had to stay longer. That was the punishment.
Yes, that's what I had.
So, and then the school I work at is a middle school, and they have after-school detention in the library.
Yeah,
You're not allowed to do anything, not do homework. You just had to
one
sit
of the
there
class. It was always one. Oh, with us, it was you would do your homework, or one because it was a rotating which teacher was doing it. One teacher would just hand you the dictionary and paper, and you just straight up started copying it. He hated me.
Why?
Because I copied it backwards, letter for letter.
Did he say?
I flipped to the very end, and I didn't start at the beginning of Z.
No.
I literally started at the end of Z, and letter for letter wrote it backwards.
So the definition, you wrote the word backwards.
I wrote the definition to start.
Oh yeah. So
I literally went letter. It would be like rewriting this.
Yep.
Flipping to the last page and being my first letter, being
Hold on.
the quotation mark.
Okay.
Like, it would just be straight. And he was like, what? And I was like, you didn't specify it needed to be in order.
Or written exactly as
So, and then the next time I would just H, and I'd just start there. And then I'd randomly fill in like 3 of them, switch to another page, write down which page it was on. Oh, yeah.
So
I was like, you need to be a little bit more refined in your directions.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
So this was an interesting chapter. I don't think it needed to be its own chapter, though.
Not really.
It does fit as its own chapter. It's a great breaking point.
But this feels like it's the end of the previous chapter.
But I know for a fact we don't see anything after this.
No.
We move on to something else. So it's like, okay, there's nothing else to add to. She went home, or
no.
we follow them into detention. It's just
and honestly, the detention, is she leaving detention when Skyler catches up to her 4 months later? No.
No. I do find it funny.
So it just really is just, hey, Jenna, you had a shitty day.
Remember how I said she had a cheerleading outfit on?
Yeah.
During that incident? That's in April. Why does she have a cheerleading outfit on? It's not basketball.
Baseball?
There's no cheerleaders for baseball.
No, there isn't.
There's no cheerleaders for volleyball. So yeah, I don't know why that was the case, but
oh, it's interesting.
It clearly tells you that I didn't know what time of year it really was. I knew it was springtime, but I didn't understand. I didn't know what to put down for a dress code because I never described it. So I just said cheerleader. I wanted her to be a cheerleader. She's in a cheerleading outfit all of a sudden.
I mean, at that point, she's a competitive cheerleader for the school.
Well, that's the thing. No, she's not even through school. She's on a separate team. They use the school for practice or something like that. If you want to do it that bad, go
She's
that way.
super competitive.
So, but I don't know. Anything you want to add to this discussion?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
But yeah, this could have been. If there was more coming, this could have been its own chapter.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a great breaking point between the two spots.
I mean, you can expand it to make it its own chapter.
Oh, absolutely. But
you also need to figure out a way to tie this into why we needed to have this.
It was a way to flesh out Jenna.
I know,
That's
but
the reason.
It just needs to be tied in. Otherwise, it is a random bounce away and then come back.
I think the whole point was, the first part was to understand Jing,
Yes.
connection to
Yes.
Jenna's family and
but
dad.
this part of it,
This, I think, was the original conception was when you realize that she's starting to see her mom again. That's the way, without actually going back and making that full connection. Her mom turned them in.
yes.
For the money.
Now,
Apparently.
if you made
but
it,
we never specifically state that, so you don't know that, and it's never addressed in this book.
even better is you can actually have her start talking with her mom, not seeing her mom, but talking with her mom, and like that's what John finally allowed. I still don't understand how he would get away with cutting his wife off completely from their daughter legally. Other than they got divorced and he got Jenna because his wife went crazy.
That's the thing. Again, never discussed.
Nope.
Not important. Actually, it is kind of important, but
Now, would we
don't need a full flashback. I think we could just had a line that they got divorced, and due to some actions before the divorce, it was he got Jenna because if he brought those out, it could hurt her worse, and she didn't, or something like that. But who knows?
You could put mom in a psych hospital. That might be why that she's not allowed to know where her daughter is.
Something like that. Like,
My daughter has powers, and everyone's like, "Okay, you need to calm down." And she tries to, commit suicide at one point or something.
But like, yeah, it's one of those things where you're just like, okay.
She becomes a danger to herself.
But yeah,
'Cause she's got powers.
oh well. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. If you made it this far, I'm assuming you're enjoying this video. So, before you do anything, comment down below. Let us know what you're thinking of the story, your thoughts on this chapter. How would you improve it? What would maybe you add to this chapter so it could be a full chapter, or whether it should just have been added on to the chapter before it, like so many chapters previously. With that, if you made it this far, I'm assuming you like it, so why not go and hit that like button, because it helps out the channel, and do it as a prayer to the holy algorithm.
The holy algorithm.
And subscribe to I have some writing content on here. Speaking of that, I'll have on the screen now the playlist to the rest of the Skyler Grant podcast episodes, as well as a video that best suits you. Whatever you click on, we'll see you there. And thank you so much for listening. Bye. Adam, stop flicking off the floor.
What?